If you're sending out marketing but that's not making any impact, chances are you're just not targeting the right people. We recently did a product launch in which we did over $100,000 worth of sales in just over 24 hours. And we were marketing to a very tiny, small list, in-house list of less than 5,000 people. And this is how we did it. If you're not getting the response you want, then chances are you're not targeting the right kind of people. You're not targeting the people that you should be targeting. And that's a big problem. So when we talk about marketing, we're talking about three things that work in tandem. The first is your message. What are you saying? Is the message clear enough? Assuming you have a good enough message, a clear enough message, a very relevant message. The second thing is, who are you delivering that message to, right? That's your target audience, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But just to complete this concept, the third thing that you should be focusing on is media. So market, message, and media. When these three things align together, what you have is a triangle of beauty, right? You have a message that is being delivered to the right people at the right time at an economically feasible enough price point so that you can generate a profit in a short enough time after delivering your marketing message to them. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they spend a lot of money on marketing, right? They have the right media, they have a good message, and they still don't get the kind of response that they're expecting. And the reason for that is bad targeting or poor targeting. If you're trying to sell something to people who cannot buy no matter how much they want it, then you're not going to be able to make your money back. If you're targeting college students and trying to sell them a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 product or service or program, chances are it's not going to work no matter how you target, no matter what media you use, no matter what you say. Why? Because even if they have the interest and even if they have the willingness, they just don't have the ability. So they got to have interest, they got to have willingness, they got to have ability to buy what you're selling. Now, I keep saying when information is cheap, attention is expensive. So whom you're targeting is super important. And when media is expensive or when attention is expensive, and attention is something that is not freely given. This is not the 1970s or 1980s where you could just put up an ad somewhere on a billboard or on the TV and people would basically watch through the entire 30-second, 60-second, 90-second, 120-second ad slot. Why? Because they did not have anything else going on. They did not have 100,000 channels to shuffle through. They did not have 100,000 different distractions to go through. Let me put it to you this way. You're competing with Kim Kardashian for attention. You're competing with pranksters on YouTube for attention, with funny cats and cute babies and all that stuff for attention. You're competing with storytellers, expert storytellers and expert brilliant marketers of all time, really, because people leverage what everyone else has been doing and what has been done in the history of the world, right, of their industry. Marketers and advertisers leverage everything marketers and advertisers of the past had learned in their time as advertisers and marketers, right? They leverage their experience, they leverage their skills, they leverage their observations. And it's the same thing with all kinds of storytellers. People get better every single day. So you're competing with all of them, which is why media costs are constantly rising. In fact, I recently read somewhere that Facebook advertising costs creep up by as much as 3% per month, each and every month. The cost of advertising to a certain group of people goes up by 3%. In other words, that gets doubled every 2 years, right? Doubled. The cost of reaching or advertising to, right? Showing your impression to 1,000 people of a certain audience, right? Or a certain block of audience doubles every 2 years. So the media costs are creeping up. And that is why it's super important for you to have super relevant messages for the right people, for people who actually have interest in what you are selling and what you're saying, who have a problem that you can solve, who need a solution that you can provide, who have the willingness to go ahead and purchase from you, given you show them the right messages, who have the ability, most importantly, to make a decision right now or maybe in a short time from now, right? So you need to make sure that you're targeting the right people. Now, how do you do that? There are a variety of tools. For instance, on Facebook, what you can do is you can target people by age, gender, location, that's your demographics, right? But also income, household income, or net worth, or investable assets, or you can target them by what they're interested in. And you can exclude people. So you can say, okay, I want to target people who are men, 25 to 35 year old, living in New York, who are interested in fashion, but I want to exclude people who are food junkies. So the way Facebook would know that they're food junkies is by looking at who likes what, right? So if someone is liking pages like, oh, I love home cooking, or I love food, something like that, right? That's a very rudimentary example, but a relevant example nonetheless. Now you're targeting fitness conscious men between the ages of 25 and 35 who are living in New York, and that might be a group that's worth catering to. But if you add another filter, right, you're going to narrow down your audience at every stage, right? The cost of reaching these people for 1,000 times or showing them 1,000 impressions is going to go up every time you make selects. But the overall cost of advertising will go down, and the sharpness, the brilliance, the relevance of your marketing will go right up. So now when you target them by a certain income group or a certain net worth, you know that these are the overachievers, the overachievers. These are not your typical millennials who might be fitness conscious and not interested in food, or maybe they might be interested in paleo diets, right? You are looking at a very streamlined, demographic and psychographically analyzed group of people, right? Facebook has all this data, and so do a whole lot of other platforms like YouTube, Google, SiteScout, Traffic Vans, DoubleClick, you name it, they have the data. Even if you never told them. I mean, someone was talking to me about this, right, recently. I never told Facebook how much I earned. Well, Facebook knows. How? They know what you're interested in. They know where you're spending your time. They know which restaurants you're checking into. They know how frequently you travel. They know what class you travel in based on whether or not you frequent lounges in airports, right? So they know a whole lot about you, a lot more than you can expect. In fact, they know so much about you that if you go back to them and say, okay, this is a group of people I want, not only will they be able to target that group of people, but you can also say to them, hey, these are all my customers. Can you give me a lookalike audience? A lookalike audience is basically someone with similar demographics and psychographics, okay? And they'll say, okay, in the state of New York, for instance, in this particular location, or in the city of New York, the 1% of population that is very similar to your own customers is this group of people. They'll target the top 1% or 2% or 3%, and you can specify that, right? You can specify, I want to target 1% of New Yorkers who look exactly like my customers or my leads or my website visitors. That's how deep this goes. That's how easy it is to target these days. When it's this easy to target, there is really no excuse for you to be doing your targeting in a bad way, right? Because traffic is expensive, attention is super expensive, and you're not going to get it if your relevance is very low. In fact, when you create an ad on Facebook or even on Google, anywhere really these days, they give you a little quality score or a relevance score, which is basically a measurement of how well your advertising is doing, and that depends upon how relevant it is to your target audience and how interested they are in what you have to say to them, right? The more interest they show or exhibit by clicking or liking your page or liking your post or interacting with it, posting a comment, going to your website, doing something on your website, the more action that they take, the better or higher your relevance score gets to be. It comes from first, targeting the right people. And second, it comes from sending out the right message to them. So once you start with the targeting, that's where you start. You always start with targeting the right people. You find out if you already have a business and you've had this business for a while, you already know who your customers are and what they like and what they do and what they look like, what their demographics are, what their psychographics are, how many kids they have, how affluent they are, so on and so forth. So you can simply go to Facebook or YouTube and tell them this is the kind of people I want to target, right? The next thing you do, and we're going to talk a lot more about this in another video, but what you do, you take different messages and you show them different messages and you find out what it is that they're really truly interested in talking to you about. So you may know who your people are, but then the next challenge becomes, what do you say to them? And we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail in another video, in an upcoming video. But for now, it's important to be very sure about who you're targeting and why you're targeting this group of people. It's inexcusable to target the wrong people. And one last consideration when it comes to targeting people is this. Since attention is so expensive, since media is so expensive, and attention is way more expensive than media, because just buying some media doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get attention of your market. Attention is way more expensive than media, because just buying some traffic or just buying some media doesn't guarantee that you're going to get their attention. All it guarantees is that you can post an ad in front of their eyeballs, right? Once you have that media, how you convert it into attention is another story, and then how you monetize it is yet another story. So you cannot afford to spend $20 or $30 or $50 to reach 1,000 people, maybe even $100,000 to reach 1,000 people, depending upon the kind of campaign you're doing, depending on the media you're using, right? If you FedEx them all a message, a very important message, well, that has a lot of impact because it gets you a lot of attention. But then being able to convert that attention and monetize or gain at least $100,000 out of that campaign is another story altogether, which is very doable, by the way, if you're targeting the right people and saying the right things to them and have the right offer for them and the right product for them. But the important thing is you got to have something that actually justifies spending that much money, right? If you have a $2,000 thing, it might justify spending some money on Facebook. If you have a $100,000 program, it might justify basically all sorts of media, right? If you have $1 million offer or a $10 million offer, if you're a realtor or looking to sell your property, then you can basically spend 6 figures on acquiring that one client or that one partner or that one buyer that you're looking for, right? So everything comes down to knowing your numbers. Marketing is about two things. It's about psychology and it's about economics, right? Psychology has got to do with who your people are and what you're saying to them, right? Market and message. The second thing is economics, which basically corresponds to in the triangle of trust to your media, how you're reaching them, right? If you're spending $10 a piece on FedEx, then that's a very expensive sort of media. Or a $100 box, if you're sending a large, giant $100 box to someone via FedEx, that's very expensive media. You can do that. And I've done that, by the way, but not at that scale. I've not spent $100,000. I've done it with 10 people, basically, and it really generated a lot of revenue for me with just 10 people. The question is this. Are you targeting the right people? Do you have the right offer? And then finally, can you justify paying that much money for your traffic, for your media, with the profit generated from the sales? That's what it boils down to. So in the next video, we're going to talk about what it is that you should be saying to the right people now that you know who your right people are. For now, the exercise is for you to sit down and figure out who the right audience is, who the right person is. You talk about your top client, right? Think about your best client and figure out their demographics, their psychographics, what it is that they're interested in, what it is that they do, how do they spend their time. You figure all those things out and then go figure out how many such people you can reach on a certain media platform. And then, and only then, can you hope to have the right targeting, which is basically the beginning of having great marketing. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments below. If you like this video, hit like. If you dislike this video, hit dislike. And subscribe to be alerted every time we post a new video, which is almost daily at this point of time.